Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is so exciting. Welcome to our first soft launch. Soft because the books are, we'll talk about it more. But just the lay of the land, Erin and I are going to do a couple little intro, then we'll do a little quick kind of reading, and then we'll end with a Q&A conversation. Erin?
Okay, so on behalf of Thick Press and Chris Hoff, welcome to Scribble. Julie and I are Thick Press. We're an experimental publishing practice. We make unusual books about care work and the work of care. Chris, who's our co-editor on this project, is a care worker in the disruptive tradition. That's what I was told to say.
Love it.
In the spirit of radical hospitality and accessibility statements, which are 2 entries from the Encyclopedia, the 3 of us want to make you all feel comfortable and welcome in this space. So feel free to use it in whatever way is accessible. Get up, move around, get a drink, they're free. Take notes, walk outside if you need a break. The restrooms are in the back, behind the drinks.
So we are really excited to celebrate the book with you all today. This is the first out of many events over the next few months, taking place in different cities. I feel lucky that both Chris and Erin are here with me in LA. I think this might be the only time we're all here together. Thanks to John over there, and his team here at Scribble for hosting our talk. If you don't know of this place, Scribble is a counseling center offering affordable therapy on a sliding scale, as well as arts and music programming at the intersection of healing and art, and very aligned with the work we're doing. Note that they are a 501c3 nonprofit that depends on donations and fundraising for their sliding scale low-cost therapy program. If anyone wants to give anything extra, although not necessary, there are QR codes around the space. Also, congratulations. Their 1-year birthday is coming up, which is October 12th. Yay! There will be an outdoor market and activities and music all day. If you guys are looking to get involved, check out their website for more information on volunteering. And of course, thank you to all who have traveled from far and near a distance to come and celebrate an Encyclopedia of Radical Helping with us. We also want to give a shout out to our contributors who are here with us now to celebrate.
So maybe you could wave when we say your name. Anna Stein, who contributed Generous Systems.
Brian Arau, who contributed Brave Space.
Camille Nibunko, who contributed Critical Hope and Sound Healing.
Kathy Fairbanks, who contributed Respite Rooms.
And Deborah Shokby, who contributed Gift Economies and Togetherness.
Jamie Stokey, who contributed Healing Healers through the arts.
And Kamran Afari, who contributed Narradrama.
Karen Shu, Forest Bathing.
Katrina Umber, Pictures of Radical Attunement.
Larry Zucker, Relational Interviewing.
Leanne Fumerton-Liu, Slowness.
Marcela Polanco, Autonomous Healing.
Maya Druckman, Body Neutrality and Sex Positivity.
Melaine Malcolm, Anti-Racism Court System.
Melinda Sapatsaris, Progressive Education.
Norma Fabian Newton, Intergenerational Living.
Onyinye Alheri, Infinite Blackness, Prison Abolition and Radical Inclusion.
Sabrina Tom, Narrative Medicine.
and Sarah Egger's art-based group work. So most of the copies of an Encyclopedia of Radical Helping are on a container ship somewhere in the Indian Ocean, we think. But we have enough advanced copies for the contributors, so you can look through theirs. And we also have 2 copies in the back of the book that you can thumb through to see everybody's amazing work, words and images. And you can pre-order the book from our website. It's available for $25, $35, or $45, which is our solidarity economy pricing. Pay what you feel like paying today. No need to be consistent. And the books will likely ship out. I'm a little overwhelmed thinking about this because I am our shipping department. But they'll likely ship out from DC in late October.
In addition to today's events, we have set up an ongoing process exhibition of the book at Los Angeles Contemporary Archives vitrines in Chinatown, which are open daily from 8 to 6 p.m., so check that out. As well as a public talk with myself and my studio partner Karen Shu of Omnivore happening at the Roski School of Art in downtown LA this Tuesday, September 24th at 7 p.m. if you're around. Thick Press will also be tabling at Acid Free Light Weekend, October 18th to 20th at Marta Gallery in Silver Lake.
But that's Julie's dad's birthday. So Julie's not going to be there for the whole time. So we're looking for some helpers, either volunteers or workers. If anyone wants to represent Thick Press for a couple of hours that weekend, please let us know. And it's a great opportunity also if you have any students who are looking for a job. Yeah. So our plan for today is to start with the brief collective reading and end with the conversation. Julie and I have talked, and Chris, a lot about how to orient this event, how to make it an inquiry that aligns with this project, which for us is really about inclusivity, emergence, and world making. As we move this book into the world, it's our intention to move away from a structure where the 3 of us are at the center and move towards a structure, a rhizomatic structure, where radical helpers can create connections that lead to other connections, and so on.
So before we get into the collective reading and conversation, we want to describe the project for those of you who are new to an Encyclopedia of Radical Helping, and this is our sort of succinct sort of description, which I'm going to read. From abundance to zine making, an Encyclopedia of Radical Helping invites the reader to wander through a collection of interconnected entries on helping and healing by over 200 contributors from the worlds of social work and family therapy, art and design, bodywork and witchery, organizing and education, and more. Privileging co-construction over diagnosis, wisdom over evidence, collective healing over individual cure, yet always blurring categories and embracing contradictions. This world-making collection reveals a pluriverse of helping practices grounded in love and freedom.
So people always ask us what we mean by radical helping. And first, I think it's important to say we were going for flexibility. If somebody said it was radical helping, then it was radical helping. But for the 3 of us, radical helping didn't, and it doesn't necessarily mean getting at the root of suffering and oppression. That's sort of the Angela Davis definition of the word. I think the 3 of us think it's kind of too late for that, although maybe not all of our contributors agree. So we tend to gravitate towards the idea that our task is to figure out how to create and recreate new ways of being in the here and now, and figure out how to do it lovingly in relation to other humans and non-humans. So when it comes specifically to helping, it feels radical to us to move beyond diagnostic, problem-focused ways of thinking, being, and doing.
And why Encyclopedia? We chose the format for a couple of reasons. We love the poetry that comes from lists of words or concepts. It's something about the simplicity of a single word, and then also the aggregation of these words into something like a list, or in this case, an encyclopedia that feels world-making. Similarly to dictionaries or other types of books that are indexical in nature, we were interested in queering a format that has been traditionally used to organize and rationalize information. So you'll see the edges of the book are perforated in a semicircle, so folks can mark the entries they want, kind of a reverse move to a dictionary where the half circles are often cut out for ease of reference. We were also interested in the juxtaposition of unlikely terms. A long-term goal for the book has always been about making lists in the back of the book centered around themes that have emerged. We imagine an infinite number of lists, shuffled and reshuffled according to recurring concepts that come from studying the texts. We never quite got around to that part. As the work of making the book was an enormous task. But in the 24th hour, right before sending the book to print, we added cross-references to the edges of the pages, highlighting other terms in the book that connect to the current list. Making connections has always been at the core of the book. Making connections between concepts that feel more likely, and then making connections that feel emergent and perhaps unlikely.
And that's what today is about. So now on to the reading, and we really wish we had more time to hear more words from each contributor, but we're also so excited to have such a big group of contributors.
So we created this collage of snippets arranged alphabetically by topic. Some people are reading their own words, others are reading words written by others.
So in the spirit of emergence, we invite you to let the words wash over you and see what happens.
Okay, so we're gonna start now.
Justice partners and community members work together to dismantle the structures that perpetuate inequity and build a roadmap towards a system that fosters true equality, fairness, and justice for all.
There is something greatly moving in these hand images that I have come to understand as a sense of the artist's presence, that human impulse to leave a mark, to say, I was here.
Thus, if the question of the putamente unfuckwithables is not about their being, it is about what they do, heal and transform, and how they dwell intercommunally in movement.
What is the body part that you think about the least, worry about the least? What if that is how you felt about your entire life?
Social justice learning is not purely intellectual. It is also an emotional exercise.
When a community has a shared vision, we can build and share a better future for everyone.
On my walks, I listen to the wind, the crows, little chickadees and juncos, muffled traffic, barking dogs, sometimes frogs. There is refuge in ritual.
When shoppers enter, we ask them to take what they think they need or can really use and check out at the counter.
Sympathetic appeals are ineffective in the marketplace. You can't get a discount or a perk for emotional distress. You might get a gift though.
Incorporating art activities into your workplace, medical training program, and daily life can have a positive impact on well-being, bonding, and empathy.
I craved connection and emotional safety. I dreamed of around-the-clock community. The comfort and security of a family blanket seemed the only possible sub.
These in-between places of waiting and uncertainty are everywhere and inevitable.
Participants explore, develop, and reflect upon preferred roles through a series of exercises in externalization, sculpting, movements, definitional ceremonies, and witnessing practices.
The medicine, the relief, is the meeting between two people, the one giving and the one receiving.
What can be done to access other stories of identity? outside of the problem's reach that lead to intentions that are more in line with our hopes and dreams.
For Maggie Nelson, the way to act differently, to find and create different stuff in the air, is to act, in the words of David Graeber, quote, as if one is already free.
The sensual feeling of embodied life and the bittersweet magic of how it can all come together, crafted from a playful and literal alchemizing integration of moments and aspects of relation.
The PTM framework takes the position that challenges folks often face are not fundamentally biological, but experiences of embodied, meaning-based threat responses to the negative effects of power.
We do not seek to replace harmful institutions, but to burn them to ash and create new ways of living in harmony.
Thus, children don't just grow, we all grow. We renew our faith in each other. In you, society, we mustn't just pass on your problems to the next generation.
I like the word entitlement because it makes people sound dignified and implies that we are all entitled, literally, to care.
I venture to say that liberation cannot be measured by the presence of a marginalized body-mind within or at the helm of an oppressive institution.
What do you want your relationship to do for each and both of you? And while we're at it, for everyone you care about.
The respite room is the space of reclining and dorsal rest for a kind of labor that is always up, alert, and inclining, ventrally searching for a sign. Sex positivity asks us to take out the hierarchy and taboos and approach the full menu of human sexuality and sensuality with open-minded curiosity. 1, keep in mind how the work could emanate. 2, ask in what ways you can invite. 3, ask what gifts you can give.
You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars going to a retreat or buying into wellness capitalism to be present in your body and healed with the power of sound.
Hi, I'm here. I know you're here too.
The power of storytelling and testimony in these contexts can lead to both liberation and repression. And that tension is precisely what makes them so dynamic and relevant to our uncertain future.
Thanks. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, everyone. That was special. Yeah. I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming out. And at this part, we're going to ask questions of our contributors and get a little conversation going. And then we're going to leave some space at the end for some Q&A if some questions come up. So the first question I have for the group is, what was the experience of hearing the different contributions and different voices woven together? Where did it take you? What was the impact? What stood out to you? What questions were brought up? Do we have any volunteers, and I can run the microphone to you?
Should be another mic.
Yeah, Larry's got it. Somebody else.
Well, when I was first reading the contributions that were shared with us, I had one thought, which was a lot of the contributions were talking about different systems and how different systems work and don't work. But then as I sort of listened to everybody sharing, I actually started thinking about like how much life is about shared experiences.
I was struck in reading all the different contributions by a number of things. I think most powerfully by, even though the fact that all of the different forms of radical helping that folks wrote about were quite different, had a lot of similarities, I would say, and in particular in terms of the idea that that helping is not something that you do to or for someone, but rather something you do with someone. And so that seemed really, really powerful to me, and in some ways very striking that that's radical, right? To think about helping in that way, which I think perhaps to many of us feels very natural, right? Doesn't necessarily feel radical, and yet in a broader context in terms of what kinds of helping are sort of systemically recognized as being positive or helpful, that it is actually really radical to center, right? These ways of helping that people have been practicing for eons.
Yeah, I was thinking that even if it didn't use the word, these words weren't used, although they were in several instances, there was something about like the simply put, like giving and receiving seemed to be like they're about receptivity, they're about generosity on some level, and those two things being kind of interchangeable. And it made me think, something that you just said made me think about, something one of my students said recently about, we were talking about cultural humility, I think, that they had mentioned they had mentioned the idea of like being willing to be like radically transformed, as a therapist or as a helper by the person that you're helping or the group that you're helping. And so I think that idea is like that kind of just this reciprocity between those that are helping and those that are receiving the help. Yeah.
That I really love is this idea that like these ideas and answers aren't coming from just like one person or one being. There's a collective wisdom to kind of find that in the group.
Just to add to that too, I kept hearing the word world building again, and that's such a kind of beautiful and bold ambition for a project, and yet exactly because it's not just one person's project, it can begin to be world building. And listening to that, it was like the way that they talk about like fish in water. It's like, oh, I want to swim in this. I want to marinate in this and see what grows here.
But listening to all of these reminded me of how much of the work that I do can also be very compartmentalized in these different worlds of prison education, narrow-drama, queer world making, sex positivity, meditation work, and then to actually have this thread of radical framing and thinking, bringing them together in an encyclopedic form with the focus on the radical aspect. It's just very helpful to hear that and to see that enacted.
Okay, I guess I'm experiencing it as like the materialization of the hint that I received from you in the process of creating this, like the politics of the process and the ethics in the way that my piece was received was a hint of like, this is something different. And I can call the difference now, hearing everybody and reading through your stories, like radical relationality. That is something different than a collection of different stories, but like the contact of the differences between the stories to create something different. Not like adding 1, 2, 3. So in the way that the stories come together across the differences, and connecting how different each one of the entries are, it's what for me is extraordinary, right? It's not a theme that says this. I mean, this book is the title conceptualizes something complex, diverse, different, radically different, and that for me is like the definition of hope. So, thank you.
For me, the expansiveness of thought and subject matter really inspired a hope and produced a level of excitement that I wasn't anticipating. And part of all of that internal curiosity that was sparked by the diversity of thought and the seamless, unlimited possibility to reimagine the future is what really made me smile.
I was noticing, we've gone from this material object that in its known common form is a very cognitive object. And in our experience of listening, voicing our contributions, it became a very emotional object, an emotional experience. Not unsimilar to the experience of listening to a poem, which I think is probably very intentional. But in the language of poetics, there was assonance, there was lineation, there was metaphor, and that's life-changing.
Maybe I have another question for everybody now, and that is, many of these snippets seem to touch on themes of transition, liminality, or in-between spaces, and I'm wondering, how do you see the power of the in-between and radical helping work? How do these spaces of uncertainty or waiting inform what is possible?
So this past year, I've become much more aware of the 3-act structure of the narrative therapy. You're being called to something, and then the second stage of that, the second act, being a liminal space of knowing, having a sense of the direction, having a sense of the break that you had to make in order to move on and sort of enter a new stage in your life, but really just being out there, and looking for different ways in which you can, find the North Star, or guide yourself, or learning a process of becoming more self-directed through getting help and mentorship from others as well too. And so that can be a very long process and a difficult process, and there's a lot that happens in that process. And my own work involves a period of at least a minimum 2 or 3 years of working with incarcerated people as they're also grappling with these and trying to incorporate a lot of narrative work into the coursework that we do and performances, and have them become more comfortable with that space, that liminal space, in the most oppressive conditions, to have a sense of just wanting to uproot the existing world, and yet not being there, and yet having a notion that that's where they want to be, so, and just working on that, just creating some inner emotional space, some sense of community and connection with others, so that they can engage in that kind of work. So that's I've become more appreciative of that term. And I just happen to also be editing right now a special edition of the journal called Liminalities, on the question of working within carceral settings, in mental health, in prisons, etc., etc. So that's also, I'm getting to know people from around the world that are doing this kind of work that's really special and unique. Just wanted to share that.
I think somewhere in the introduction there was the word tension, and that's kind of been circling in my mind as a positive thing. And with liminality is the tension between what was, what is, and what could be, and the tension between different perspectives and how it's a necessary aspect towards change.
I'm going to put one more question out there before we go to Q&A. And I'm really curious, and this is a question. I do have a podcast. I'm going to plug the podcast. I do a podcast called The Radical Therapist, and my favorite question I ask all my guests comes at the end, where I ask them what they're excited about, what's inspiring them, what's capturing their attention. And I guess for everybody here, looking ahead, what do you think is the next frontier of radical helping? What new ideas or practices or paradigms or what have you? What's emerging that's exciting you?
I think I'm kind of merging this question with the first one, and I was thinking about what children would think of this book. And so for me, when I think about radical helping, not like what they would do as radical helpers as adults, but what they would do as radical helpers as children.
Who's going to write that book?
So definitely not a fully formed thought or idea. There's just stuff swirling in my head right now, so I'll try to pull it together, make it somehow coherent. But and it might answer the question that you just asked about waiting or the in-between spaces, because I think sometimes like the idea of those in-between spaces being on the road to the thing, but I sometimes think the in-between spaces can be the thing somehow, like in that space where multiple possibilities coexist, where you don't have to like move into the here's what was decided or here's how this was, here's how this thing resolved, but like could we actually get more comfortable with like what would that mean if we weren't always just on the way to something else and we were just in this realm of multiple possibilities coexisting. And it made me think about, I have my mushroom dress on today. Multiple people talked about use the word rhizomatic, mycelial. I think that's like where I see the future of like just having like this, just this apprehension of our like radical, I guess, interdependence with not just each other as human beings, but with like all that is. So I'm reading this book, The Mushroom. I think it's called The Mushroom at the End of the World, and like kind of like what do we do in the ruins of the ruins of capitalism, where like I think that's it, right? What are the mushrooms doing? And can we pay attention a little bit more to that part of our being as just the more than human world that we're part of? Yeah.
Yes. This book is something that I'm really excited about. And like I was talking with Chris, like the way that this project and this book like invited so much like paradox and contradiction and then like bound it together. It's one and it's so many, and just like that kind of energy and space, and even with time, like there's like you mentioned, all of this, like there's the fungi have existed for millions of years, and they've existed pretty much the same way, and we're like just starting to learn from them. And there are all these ancient, like humans have been dancing and singing and speaking with each other for who knows how long, right? We need to do those old things, and we need to envision what things we've never done before. And so it's just so many both ands and threads, like this beautiful web in all directions. And books, like it's like I love that kind of like, far out in events, but I also like books saved my life when I was a kid. Like they helped me enter other spaces and have access. So I'm just like, I'm thankful that this is existing in lots of ways, and I think that's it, and to stay in the a few of the entries mentioned this too, the bravery, the courage, the vulnerability, the like to actually be like, we don't know, but I'm going to admit that I long for something else, and I'm going to try it, and maybe it's going to fail. And so it's like all of these cycles of reaching and reassessing and failing, and then it's not being a failure, over and over and over again, all at the same time, while we all just like compare our notes and share and hopefully dance and sing together some too.
So I almost hesitate to share this in this space. I apologize to our editors if it feels premature to talk about second edition of this. But I'll also share that having, we got to read, some of the contributions to the encyclopedia and just a fraction of them, right? And I found at the end of having read them that I wanted to rewrite what I had written. In particular, not fundamentally, but I wanted to reference a bunch of the other things that other folks had written about. I wanted to reference liminality. I thought it was so related, to this. I wanted to reference togetherness, right? And so, when I think about what the next frontier or frontiers might be, part of it, I think, even just thinking about this particular project could be about the ways that we might now be connected to each other, those of us who contributed, and other people, right, who just read it, who help to illuminate what some of those connections are, and to think about how can we really elevate, right, and pour into and invest in those kinds of connections and use them to further strengthen, to help in an even more radical way.
Okay, now I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. So bring our editors back, co-editors back. And if you have any questions about anybody, the process, or questions for contributors, or like different topics, or what have you, does anybody have any questions?
There's one back there.
Yeah. I'm going to bring you in a little bit.
Oh my God, this is terrifying. Please excuse my lack of exposure to this entire world. This is very spontaneous for me to come here. I came with a friend who brought me, and I'm actually super happy to have come because I don't know this world at all. But I'm curious about the process of making this book, specifically about the word radical. I didn't really understand why it was radical helping, and I was curious about the process of the contributors. Was there any form of debate between meanings and definitions, and how did you guys kind of deal with that and go through it? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to pass.
So this project was, we have a very zine-like ethos at Thick Press. We don't do peer review, and we believe that everyone has something important to say. So we really just took whatever, and that doesn't mean that we are not committed to rigor, because then we read it and we sort of tried to reflect back what we thought could make the piece stronger, but not. So for us, feedback is more just about reflecting back to create a space for a piece of writing or an image to become the best version of itself. It's not about critique. It's not about our vision of what radical is and projecting it onto other things. We didn't reject a single thing. Maybe there were a few times when we sort of changed course a little bit or changed the concept name so that it would fit. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Does either of you want to add something?
Can I add something? I was one of the very lucky ones who participated at the beginning in these 3 Zoom sessions that we had with Chris and Julie, and it was just wonderful. The way they presented the idea, and then we were able to come back the second time and bring the draft. We got some wonderful feedback, and then brought back the 3rd session, was able to bring a second revised version as well too. So I'm really so grateful for that process to both of you.
Again, I think answering your question about radical, I don't know if I even have a thought about that really, other than I don't know what you we kind of talk about it in the introduction. Like kind of radical can take on certain meanings into certain contexts, but I think we had a kind of a vision of something more expansive for that word that encompasses a lot rather than kind of being boxed into a particular idea. But I hope that fits. Would you add anything to that?
I would just add about helping.
Yeah.
And then we also we're really pleased that we described it as radical helping and not radical care, because care is just a word that's kind of gotten co-opted in like a lot of art and design spaces, and it just kind of doesn't really mean anything. And I mean, of course it does, but we really wanted to focus on the action of care, the caring. So that's kind of where helping came in.
Any other questions?
I just more of a comment that it's beautifully designed, and I just love the texture of those cutouts. I just had like 3 seconds to look at it, but I just love that.
We do too.
Except I can't bring myself to
Yeah.
pull, like, I just can't do it.
Yeah, I won't be pulling. Any comments, thoughts, questions? Any of the contributors have questions about? Oh, here we go.
So obviously at its core, the book is an encyclopedia, so it's indexed by these words or phrases that kind of need to be this single entity that kind of captures a broader concept. So I just, for the contributors, was it difficult to kind of distill an idea down into this single entity? Or did you start with the word and then come up with the idea from there? Kind of what was that process like, I guess?
All right, contributors.
I can share. So I'm an artist. I collaborate with another artist who is on the East Coast, so she's not here. But our contribution was a reflection on a public art project that we do. And so we look at inserting sort of alternative systems into different places. So our concept was called Generous Systems, and they said, yes, we like this, it fits into our book. And so it wasn't, it sort of, I think there was some, that you had an idea first when we said, this is kind of how we talk about it. I don't remember what exactly the term was, but when we came back with what the term we use, it made sense and fit.
Yeah, I can say something. As a Spanish speaker, I have a particular relationship with the word encyclopedias. And quite frankly, I ignored the encyclopedia word when I started writing. I guess it was just a sense of the invitation. So I don't think I started thinking about a term, but like what I wanted to talk about, and then I look at the title at the end, and then when I saw the organization, I'm like, oh, I get the ordering of this is an encyclopedia, but it was like the last consideration about thinking. It was just the ideas, the stories, the events that then ended up with a title, and then ended up with a larger network of the encyclopedia.
We had another question over here.
I have a question. I feel like I'm like coming out of the closet as like I'm an allopathic nurse. I feel like it's almost a like dirty word in a way, allopathic. But it was kind of the like my work as an allopathic nurse, I've always just interpreted as like the work of love, and that it has some origin to magic and witchery, and it has some origin to science, and it has some relationship to a kind of like labor practice. I'm a unionized nurse also, but I think I just want to think about that word radical, I think, because I do think that in my practice, I've taken the interpretation of what this Western nurse did and then just kind of tried to radicalize myself, like turn myself into a free radical, like turn myself into this little energy system that didn't have to stay within its bounds and that could fuck with power when I needed to get something done for someone, to feel empowered, to work in a really international, multilingual space where people had very different ideas of nursing and I was along for the ride with them, and practice a kind of Filipino nursing actually, which has been a brilliant liberation in my own Western practice. And so I come to this to see everyone and I feel like it's a room full of free radical. It's a room full of people, you know, energetically like moving outside of the bounds of the kind of congealed compound that they maybe originally were trained in or oriented to, and that they feel a sense of collegialness across all these boundaries. And I think a lot of that for me, it comes from having these conversations with Erin and Julie also. You know, meeting them, I realized like they had the ability to bridge enormous territories, and so I felt very much like, well, these are my people. And so again, now today, this is a brilliant feeling of like, oh, these are my people. Like I've been waiting in LA for like 14 years to like find the weirdos like I'm here, and like I'm always, you know, yeah, it's like I have my swimsuit underneath. Like people don't know that, but like that's a feeling I have in this room. That's okay that I like to wear my swimsuit. You know, it's like. And anyways, I just wanted to say that to the person who asked, like, how did we arrive at these categories? How did we arrive at our chapter? And for me, it was in a conversation with really smart editors who have bridged entire territories before and are, you know, such wordsmiths, and yeah, so graceful.
Thank you so much for that. What I have is a question for the audience. I'm curious, and this, because of something that Erin said earlier about how everybody has something to contribute, which I strongly believe in. And so I'm curious for folks who just joined because you were wondering what this is about, or you came to support a friend, whatever. What would you contribute if you were a contributor? Like, never mind what's already in there. I'm just curious, like, what gifts are in the room right now? Feel free to shout it out, or I can move the mic.
I will answer the question because I'm your friend. I think I would contribute how to love your union when you hate your union. Because I feel like I'm in a deep healing process with my politics and my union and my art.
You're gonna have to, you want to shout out?
Yeah, a piece of fiction. Because I think that the relationship of language and playfulness in language is so important when you are trying to break barriers around things that you're doing, like actually in your life.
Wonderful. Ever hear that, a piece of fiction? Anybody else? I'll run over to you.
I'd be interested in, I feel this kind of collective power in this space. And like, if we could come up with a process to kind of actualize what's in this encyclopedia to make a thing. Like, I don't know what it is between what I know and what you know and what you bring and what that person brings, but how can we actualize it in space and do, you know, like some version of radically connecting or healing in community and stepping away from the individualistic 50-minute space that can sometimes be really confining. But I just imagine there's so much here that I don't yet know.
I would contribute something. I know we were talking about liberal spaces, but just kind of feeding off of that, the kind of embracing messiness and accepting it, and like just as part of life, and the space that's in between is really kind of tangled. And I think that's something to be explored as a space with a lot of like creativity and complexity in life, like literally and emotionally.
Okay. Messiness. Want to shout it out, or I don't think.
Yeah, I was just thinking, this is such a cool book, but if I was asked to add something, maybe I would add a chapter called, like, Talking to the Dead. Because I was thinking about like, what really helped me. I love listening to Ram Dass or Alan Watts or all these people. And I have a weird, special relationship with a version of them that I made that helps me every single day. So kind of helping people or just discussing the process of making someone who's passed away, who writes a lot, alive in your head and sort of working through your problems.
Talking to the dead. I think we all do that, right?
When I think about healing, I feel like there's so many things that we can do with something that we all have. It's constant. So maybe I think about just the way that time shapes as we do phases of life and how it impacts the way that we move through and
Love it. Time. And Marcella and I were in just in conversation last weekend with a group of folks, and that specific topic came up, time, and how can we reorient around time, right?
I think literally it was, how can we fuck with time?
Leave it to Marcella. How can we fuck with time? Love it.
This just brought up for me just the, like someone had that critical hope, and just thinking about underestimating and how much we underestimate the in-between moments, or we have these kind of unreasonable expectations on what this thing, like what's a thing? And it's like, this is it. Like, what if this, like we actually are, we have created something really extraordinary right now. And if we actually just like breathe with that for a moment and like fuel the like sparkles that are actually here, and then like know that's like those are seeds and they're gonna go out in all different directions, including back to the dead and the forward, like in all ways, but also like instead of this idea of like, well, it's like what is it that we are expecting, you know? And so to like savor, I don't know, there's something just like, I feel like this really is something right now, quite extraordinary, quite radical.
I know somebody mentioned it, but I did have an emotional experience as we were reading the snippets too. It did like, bring tears to me. So it was, yeah, didn't expect that, but that's what happened. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about process, because I know you all definitely thought a lot about this space and how does it go, and like the making the connections, and I just wonder if there's a way, I don't know, technologically or something, to just be able to like share right away, like someone says something that inspires something in you or reminds you of something, just share with that right away, or like have some, I don't know what the process is, but I was thinking because when you talk about talking to the dead, like just immediately want to ask them, how they act bars, just like things like that.
Thank you, Sabrina. Anybody else? Yeah, Lynn.
Thanks, Chris. I love it that word togetherness has been up there, because what I've been grappling with, and part of being in a conversation with Chris and some other folks here last weekend, the way that, I'm striving to be at the margins, but then there's this pull back to structures and trying to keep staying at the margins. And what sustains that? What sustains liminality? It's hard to be in liminality. And what sustains it? And that's kind of a question I have here. And maybe it's that word, but thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay.
I guess I had a quick one.
Yeah.
We got to turn the camera.
Well, as you know, Chris, I came to narrative and neurodrama. Well, I'm studying to be a drama therapist, and I came from the film industry and well, kind of independent filmmaking, and I teach screenwriting. So, and I was really wanting to help people in a more therapeutic way, and I feel like it's important and radical to use the processes, some sort of therapeutic processes, whether it's drama therapy or other approaches whether it's in the industry or just filmmaking as an artistic expression, because yeah, why not? Yeah.
We got to get that second edition.
Second
So you got to help. You all have to help us sell some books, right? So post on your Instagrams or whatever.
Thought this might actually go against the spirit of the book itself, but you know, constantly thinking about curricularizing things or thinking of study groups or classroom exercises. So I think it would be really nice if the editors, maybe you can help actually put together, or maybe we can even do a series of Zoom meetings to really discuss how to put together a way to structure some kind of a study around the book, so that people can purchase it together, read it together, offer it in classes as either a textbook or additional reading, etc. But just to help out in that way, I think would be really helpful.
Very happy to report we are getting university libraries ordering the book, so I think that's kind of subversive. We're sending that in Trojan horsing.
Can I turn to a Q&A question?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of brought up by thinking about what I maybe would share, and was thinking about all the questions that I maybe would the questions to bring with me, or questions to not be held back by. But that came up because I was thinking about maybe I would write an answer to a question I've always been holding, that maybe I still offer to you all, which is how, if you have any tips for how to authenticate your relationship to help, and to helping, and to particularly having in mind as a contrast to that, a relationship that's oriented around should, and that is coming from external pressure, or assuming yourself into helping, or a not seeing the neutrality and reducing the recipient of helping. Just how to enter into a mode of living, moving, helping that is holds the integrity of who I am, what's natural to me, and a real relationship to others. And there's the small note I'll add to that is I have some Christian origins that have kind of tainted my relationship to helping currently, where I feel very it feels so attached to self-neglect or something like that, and helping other space, forgetting myself, or I'm not there, so some kind of sacrifice. So maybe there's a place for that. Maybe my contribution or standards about all this, but I am interested if anyone feels thoughts and space.
I do hear a future contribution in that question. Do you want to say that?
Can I share what I was thinking?
Yeah, of course.
Your question made me think of what was going on in my head when you were speaking, which is this, it's actually a quote by a Christian saint, but St. Therese Lisieux said, to a heart that loves, all is well. And there's something about the earlier part of your question that I think about. The gift of my 40s is not being so attached to outcomes. So there's a piece about perfectionism and a competitive framework that I've released in my 40s, So I'm just pumped for you to be in your 40s.
Talk about
Maybe I'll wait that long. So there's like a combo punch of love and just being in the process of helping for me.
Thoughts or any other questions? Okay. Why don't we take this time to get to know each other? Tell us a unique thing. Just kidding. But we're gonna end our this thing now, and let's just be in community together. There are books back there that you can look at to get you excited about ordering them. They are coming at the end of October, somewhere in there. We'll get them to you. And let's just hang out for a little while and just get to know each other a little bit better. Okay. And on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for coming out. Thank you to all our contributors. Michelle and I will be in Berlin in mid-October for the Art Book Fair in Berlin, representing the Encyclopedia of Radical Helping, representing all of you. If you have anybody, friends or contacts out in the area, send them over to come hang out with us. We're going to have a couple events, both at Miss Reed and then with Hopscotch, which is a very progressive, awesome bookstore. They're going to be doing an event on Saturday night in Berlin. I think it's the 11th. Yep. So, 12th. So if you know anybody in that area, please send them our way. We'll be there. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming.